Imagine a U.S. national park in Canada. That's right. America's obsession with the Roosevelts is so intense, we crossed borders to make sure they're remembered. Stick around to uncover the wild story of how FDR's summer home became the only international park in the National Park Service, where American history meets Canadian hospitality in a way that'll leave you wanting to pack your bags and see it for yourself. So let's talk about the Roosevelts. You know, that one family America just won't stop obsessing over, kind of like the Kennedys, but with more facial hair and fewer tragic endings. Well, mostly. Somehow, the Roosevelts have managed to become a permanent fixture in American lore. We've got entire towns named after them, ships, islands, and at least a dozen statues that look like Teddy's mustache could start a conversation. But let's up the ante. America's love affair with the Roosevelts is so intense that we even decided to claim part of Canada in their honor. Yup, there's a national park dedicated to the Roosevelts chilling up north in the land of moose, maple syrup, and polite disagreements. If you've never heard of Roosevelt Campobello International Park, don't worry. You're not alone. Tucked away just past the Maine border, this spot is basically where the US and Canada meet for a yearly high five. But unlike your regular, star-spangled national parks, this one's got a little international flair. And by that, I mean it's fee-free because apparently Canada's allergic to charging admission. Here's where it gets interesting. Back in the day, when Franklin D. Roosevelt wasn't busy tackling the Great Depression or leading us through World War II, he was just a privileged kid with summers spent sailing around Campobello Island. Because apparently, nothing says humble beginnings like a 34-room cottage with ocean views. This is where FDR picked up his love for yachting, got a nasty case of polio, and perfected the art of the sweater vest. Fast forward to the 1950s, and what do you know? A rich oil tycoon ends up owning the island. He decides, you know what this place needs? More history nerds. So naturally, he starts pushing to turn FDR's summer home into a park. The catch? It's still technically Canadian soil. Normally, convincing people to give up land for a national park involves a bit of arm twisting, but in this case, it was all about flexing that sweet Cold War diplomacy. Turns out, at the time, the US and Canada were trying to work out a deal over some border dams. And what better way to show that we're totally besties than by joining forces to preserve a place where FDR probably invented the concept of summering. And just like that, Campobello became the US's only international park, which is basically just a fancy way of saying, we're sharing this one, but it's still mostly about America. Since then, Campobello's been co-managed by both countries, blending good old-fashioned American preservation with Canadian niceties like fee-free entry and a complete lack of gunfire. But here's the kicker. Campobello might be the only official US Canada collab park, but it's far from the only place where you can catch a whiff of American history on foreign soil. From Puerto Rico to Guam, the National Park Service has its hands full managing parks and monuments that remind us just how far the red, white, and blue reaches. Because even when you're halfway across the world, you should still be able to stand in awe of America's totally not complicated history. So next time you're craving a patriotic pilgrimage, but want a side of poutine with your history lesson, just head up to Campobello. You'll get a dose of Roosevelt nostalgia, stunning coastal views, and maybe, just maybe, catch sight of a moose giving a subtle nod of approval.